Okay, Matt. So this is zone 4. This is a workout. I call it the half marathon hit out. Again, this one's done to power because running power is the future. And it's 10Ks plus 3 by 1.5 Ks, or essentially 3 by 1 mile efforts.
Okay, so what is the goal of this session?
Well, the goal is to stimulate race pace or race intensity for a half marathon, which for most people is going to be around an hour and a half up to 2 hours. And it's going to be right on your anaerobic threshold. That super uncomfortable zone where you kind of, after maybe, I'd say for a lot of people, 20 minutes, you feel like that's too hard. And so within it's super, super demanding, this session, Matt, these zone 4 sessions. And they are able to be like outputted along a really long duration, 1 hour plus for a lot of people, depending on where you sit around that threshold. So you can see zone 4, in terms of running power, is 96 to 105%. And the reason I don't set just 100% is one, there's fatigue built into a training plan, and there's variability built into an individual session just due to the nature of the terrain. But also, we don't have your exact threshold on any given day. Maybe you've progressed through your training and you've increased your anaerobic tolerance and your anaerobic threshold, or just your aerobic threshold, which has lifted your ability to sustain your threshold, and we didn't test for a month. So maybe it has progressed slightly and you're able to output a little bit more. And so that's why I'm choosing zone 4, which is 96 to 105% in terms of running power. And really what we're looking to do is we're looking to run at a really high output that is relevant to the race. And I'd suggest this be done on relevant race simulation terrain. And we're progressing through, so we start with 10 kilometers, which for most people is going to be around 40 minutes. So near the max, and then I include these 1500s, Matt, which is around 5 to 6 minutes after a 2K aerobic kind of recovery, if you will. And these 3 by 1Ks, as much as they are to induce a stimulus, they're actually kind of a measuring stick to see if that pace, that anaerobic threshold pace, is able to be sustained at a duration that is similar to the event, but also has had some recovery built in. So, I can't tell you, Matt, to go out and go run a half marathon as hard as you can to prepare for a half marathon. Because when we look at progression, there is no progression from that, and the fatigue that induces is far too large. But what I can get you to do is run half of that distance at the intensity that's required, so we can test that, make sure that that is appropriate, and then we can follow up with these 3 by 1Ks, which can progress into either a 5 kilometer or 3 by 2s or an additional 15, depending on how that athlete is responding to this particular training session.
Yeah, so I can see why you did this one because with running, the faster we go, the more loading there is. So you really need to be able to spend time at this. Otherwise, you're going to get into the race and just totally demolish yourself because you haven't ever run that fast. So threshold's really hard. And I see why you did this session. That's a good session. And they don't always have to be this long or this hard to get a nice stimulus, because one of the things that we do in cycling is we'll do like 2x20s in zone 4. And that's kind of your standard, bog standard thing you're going to do on Zwift or on the hills or something like that. It's a really nice workout, and you get a lot of bang for your buck. So you really don't want to go into this kind of a workout in zone 4 with much fatigue, do you?
No, and this is what I put in a final block. So I'd say 4 weeks, 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, you do a shorter session, and then you are essentially race week. If we talk about maybe weekends out, these are generally a weekend-based session. And like you said, yes, you'd progress into this session because if you come straight in having just done base training and maybe some strides or some shorter neuromuscular intervals, running at that speed under that load for that amount of time would blow most people's legs apart. And that's one of the unique things about running. And so, no, this session requires quite a lot of, to be really fresh. Because the force generation required and even just the force application across a range of motion with a long stride length is absolutely necessary. So super fresh, and there's progression into the session and there's also progression out of it if we wanted to. Maybe if you had a couple of half marathons and you wanted to drag this one out a little longer after your first one into your peak A race. And that is how this session fits together.